Hello everyone. The next topic that we'll be discussing is group by. Group by enables us to bucketize our tables data. Recall that whenever you want to bucketize a tabular data, you're going to be looking for specific columns value. Then you're going to add the rows which satisfy that particular column's value into the corresponding bucket. Group by is going to enable us to do the exact same thing. The typical query syntax when you have a group by clause is going to be select something from table name, group by some column name. Whenever you have questions which have per each or per as part of the question, it's highly likely that you'll have to use a group by clause. Example of that particular question would be, what is the total revenue per each year? Let's try and answer this particular question. So I'm going to define the basic syntax for group by query format. So I'm going to say select something from movies, and then I'm going to say group by something. What do we want to select? Here we want to select the total revenue, right? So I'm going to say sum of revenue, and then we want sum of revenue per each year. So I'm going to group by year here. We are getting the computed sum, but it's very difficult to read because we can't really say which sum is for which year, correct? Let's go ahead and fix that. I am going to say that we have to select both year and sum of revenue, and then we want to group by year. Much better to read than the previous output. Looks like the total revenue in 2006 is 3624.46 billion. Alright, let's talk about what needs to go as part of the select clause whenever you have a group by clause. There is no specific guidance for the SQL syntax with respect to what column selection need to be made when you have a group by clause, but let me give you guidance about that. You should pretty much only have two selections whenever you have a group by clause. The first is going to be the name of the column which you're doing the group by based on. The second thing is any form of aggregation function that you want to compute. This particular example uses a sum aggregation function. If you use any other column name here, your output is going to be unexpected. Let me show you an example for that. Let's say that I include title column. Notice that for the year 2006, we are getting just one movie title. That doesn't seem correct. That's because multiple movies would have been released for the year 2006. So you should always make sure that you're only selecting the columns based on which you're doing the group by, and also any of the aggregation tasks that you're performing. Let's go through this next question over here. It's asking how many movies were directed by each director. Clearly we want to group by director and we want to compute count, right? So I'm going to say count star, and I'm going to display the director column also. A slight improvement for this query would be to order the directors based on the counts maximum value, correct? So I can do that by including an order by clause, and I'm going to say move underscore count. Let me first save movie count as move underscore count over here, and I'm going to say order the movie count by descending. Slightly better output. The next question is asking what is the average rating for each director. Clearly we want to group by director and we want to compute the average rating. So I'm going to say AVG of rating. I just need to verify the rating column. Looks like I need to use a capital R. Excuse me about that. Let me go ahead and fix that. I'm missing something. Oh, I have a typo. I have director. All right. The next question is simple. So I'm going to move on to the question after that. So I'm going to answer how many unique directors created a movie in each year. Clearly, we have to group by year over here. And we want unique directors. So I'm going to do a distinct count. Instead of saying just count, I'll have to say distinct count of director. And let me also save this as director underscore count. Right, those are all the unique director counts that you have for each of your year buckets or year groups here. Let's talk about combining group by with other clauses. I did give you a peek of that in this particular query, which answered a couple of questions before the last question. Let me give you the intuition behind ordering group by after the where clause and before an order by clause. Using the where clause, you want to restrict the rows which you're interested in within your table, correct? You really want to do the grouping after you select all of the rows which you are currently interested in. So group by needs to go after the where. Why should it go before order by? Order by rearranges the order of rows. You don't really want to order your data before you go ahead and group it. Within the grouping, you want to do the correct ordering. So order by is going to be a clause which is followed by group by. Sorry, you're going to use order by after group by. The next question is asking what is the total revenue per year in recent years. To my basic syntax for SQL query here, I am going to add the order by clause and I'm also going to add the limit clause. Right, what is the total revenue of per year in recent years? So clearly I'll have to group by year over here. And then I want to compute total revenue. So I'm going to say sum of revenue column value. And let me save that as total underscore revenue. How do we want to order our data here? It says in recent years, right? Which means that we want to order our data based on year. How do we want to do the ordering? We want the highest year, which is the most recent year first, right? So we are going to have to order by year and in a descending order. We just want to look at, let's say, the first recent 5 year movies. So let's go ahead and limit our query to 5 years. So you're going to see the total revenue computed for the last 5 years, which are the recent 5 years. Right, let's go through the next question. Which directors have the largest number of movies earning over $100 million? A lot of aspects over here. So the question is asking which directors have something. So clearly we have to group by directors. What do we have to compute? Which directors have the largest number of movies earning over $100 million? So I first need to apply a where clause. I'm going to go ahead and add that. So I'm going to say where revenue is greater than 100. The original data set has million as the notation for the revenue. So I'm just going to say 100 over here for 100 million. What do I have to select over here? I just want to select director based on which I'm doing a group by, and I want the largest number of movies. So I'm just going to do a count star or a count title. Either of those would work. So I'm going to name that as count over here. How do we want to do the ordering by? we want to order by the largest value over here, correct? So I'm going to say order by count, and I'm going to say in the descending order over here. Let me get rid of the limit. Right, looks like we have an answer to this particular question. Here are all the directors that have largest number of movies over $100 million. The next question is asking which three directors have the greatest average rating. Let's try and answer this particular question. So clearly we have to group by directors because we are trying to answer specific question about a director. So I'm going to group by director, and it's asking which three. So I'm going to have my limit as 3. And then what is the rest of the question? The rest of the question is asking greatest average rating. So which means that I'll have to first of all compute the average rating. So let me go ahead and do that. So I'm going to say director comma avg of rating as avg underscore rating. And then let me also compute count over here because we want to compute the greatest average rating, correct? So I'm going to say count star as count. What do we want to order by? We want to order by the greatest average rating. So I'm going to say order by avg underscore rating, which we just computed, and then do the order in descending order because we want the highest value. Right. I only know of Christopher Nolan. I don't know these other directors, but looks like those are the 3 directors that have greatest average rating. Why is this question not that great to ask? Well, a couple of these directors only have one movie which has the greatest average rating, correct? That's why I added the count star column to count the number of movies actually. A better question to ask would be to consider if a director has multiple great movies, correct? Let's go ahead and look at how we can ask such a question. Let me go ahead and paste this particular example over here. Can I just apply a specific condition for the count of movies here? So can I just say where count greater than or equal to 3? Let's say that we are interested in the directors who have like at least 3 greatest average rating movies. Notice that we are getting an error. That's because you cannot really apply where clause for a column which did not exist in the original table. So the count column doesn't exist in the original table. That's an aggregate column which we are computing when we are calling the aggregate count function over here. So let's talk about how we need to use the having keyword to fix this particular issue. So in a particular group, we are interested in applying a specific condition, which is count greater than or equal to 3. We will have to use the having clause for that instead of using the where clause. So far we have covered a lot of clauses. So I'm going to talk about how each of those clauses are applied internally when a SQL query is processed. Let's say that you have a table of interest. Your where clause is going to be the very first clause that is going to be applied. So which means that you cannot really be using a column that you generated based on an aggregate operation. So you'll have to do the where first, and then by that I mean the database internally will apply the where clause first, and then the next clause that's going to be applied is the group by clause, because once you have a selection of rows that you're interested in, the next thing that you want to do is you want to group them by your buckets. And then once you do the group by, you're going to apply your aggregation function because you really want to do the aggregation per group. Then once you have a per group summary, you're going to do the order by clause, which is going to order your aggregated summary in a specific order. Finally, you'll be applying the limit clause, which might just limit the number of summary aggregates over here. Couple of things are missing in this diagram. The first thing is that I don't have the from clause. That's going to be the very first thing that's going to be applied. The table itself represents the from clause here. I also don't have the select clause. That's because select is a little bit tricky to understand in terms of where exactly the selection happens. If you think about it, part of the selection happens when you do the aggregation, correct? Because you want to aggregate based on some selection. And also part of the selection happens when you apply the limit clause. So that's why select is not represented in this particular diagram over here. Alright, I'll wrap up this video here. In the next video, I'll show you the correct way of answering this particular question using the having clause.